You're watching an amazing podcast from an amazing podcast company.
Welcome, everybody, to the Vegas Player Podcast. I'm Johnny Ciccatelli, joined, of course, by the man himself, Jimmy Mulidore. He's coming to you from Vegas. I'm coming to you from Youngstown. Today's a little different. My co-host, Jimmy Naples, could not make it this week. It's okay. He's got some family stuff he's doing. And, what do you think, Jimmy? He couldn't get out of the family stuff this week. He's gotta go do it. You've been married three
Well,
times, right?
he's wimping out. Poor guy. I feel sorry for
Yeah.
Jimmy, but I would have not done left. But Jimmy has to do what he has to do. So
Well, that's why you're divorced three times, right?
I guess absolutely right. Because
So,
that's just
yeah, we love
it's
you,
just
Jimmy. We know you're wherever you are, you're doing some family stuff. We'll see you next week. But all right. So this week, Jim, I want to talk about, last week we talked about Elvis and some really great stories there. This week we're gonna get back to your love life. First, if you haven't read Jimmy's book, it's called The Vegas Player Podcast. You want to check that out right now. You can get it at jimmymulidore.com. Jimmy, like we just said earlier, he's been married three times. In a previous episode, we talked about his first wife. She was a dancer. She was an
act
actress, right? She was an
right,
actress. She
right,
was from Scotland. She was in some James Bond things, and
right.
very interesting relationship. Jimmy, it didn't work out. Jimmy's mother-in-law didn't like him, so
No,
there was a clash there. But now I want to get into your second marriage, and you had told me, and I know it's in the book a little bit. But you had told me that it's got a Youngstown mob connection. Is that right?
correct. Yeah.
So,
So
so who was your second wife? When did you meet her? When did you marry her?
okay, I started to go down at the request of the producer of the show down at a place called the Nevada Club, downtown Las Vegas, Peter Anthony. So I went down there and I was watching a show with a friend of mine, Frank Capizio, who's passed away, my dear friend. And we're watching a show, and Ming, four or five girls come on, and this one girl, blonde, comes out and looked like Kim Novak, had a body to die for, and being Italian, that look with a blonde like Linda Evans and Kim Novak and a body to die for. Of course, I fell for that. And Peter introduced me to her, and we started hanging out, and it got ridiculous. So at that time, I was in. That was before, like I said on the last episode, before I got drafted. Legitimately got drafted. I knew I was going to get drafted because Sandy was gone. And so I got this ingenious idea that I could get out of the art draft again because she had a daughter named Lisa, born on the same date as my daughter. I figured I could get married and get out of the draft. So eventually we got married, and it didn't help because they found out she wasn't my original daughter. So that's when I had to go back into the draft and went through that story I told you earlier. So now we get married, and it was okay for a while, and here comes my mother, 4'6", 4'7", dynamite, comes out with my father, and she says, "Come over here." And she says, "Do you know who you married?" I said, "What are you talking about? What?" She said, That's a mafia mistress. They got pistol whipped 40 times by Charlie Carabia. What's the matter with you? I said, well, how the hell I know? So in the meantime, she was no bowl of cherry. She was into everything, drugs and things that normal people don't do. Hanging out, don't come home 2, 3, 4 days, robbing me out of money. And then my dad told me, you embarrass me. I go to work at night, and these guys in the mill are razzing me about your son married that mafia mistress, Rhonda. And I'm going, oh man. Now I figured, oh, that's it. After 9 months, I gotta get rid of this fool down. So I go down and I hire Harry Claiborne, the best attorney in town. No matter what, it was Frank Sinatra's attorney. You hire Harry Claiborne, case closed. No matter what. So we went through the divorce, but before that, here comes Jimmy Danks, my cousin Petrella.
I've heard him called Dankers Petrella before. He was what? He was your cousin, and he was mob connected.
Oh, Dankers. Oh, his claim to fame was he arrested 52 times, and he was connected with Fats Aleo.
Okay.
One of the worst people to ever live, Fats Aleo. Nothing like the Naples. Nothing like the Naples family. So Fats Aleo, but well, let me finish. Let me finish my other. Hold on. Let me finish my episode with Dankers, asking for a comp in the gourmet room. So between shows, I'm still married to this Mama Look over here, and I go in and have dinner with her. I walk in there. He's in there with, would you imagine, Charlie Carabia.
So Jimmy Danks is in there with Charlie Carabia.
Charlie Carabia, who pistol whipped the woman I'm married to. Now, Dankers was a miserable at times. He loved to see reactions. I'm walking there. He says, hey, cuz, I want you to meet somebody. Like it's a big joke. I'm looking at the Charlie Carabia's nuts. I don't know where this guy came from. He's a typical mom. Anyway, he's still in love with her, and he pistol whipped her because she was screwing around on him, and he went to jail for it. Beat her 40 times in the head. So you can imagine how uncomfortable, how nervous. I mean, what are you doing? I'm at my work. Everybody knows me. I got a big, beautiful reputation. I'm sitting here with this miserable over here. I'm going, how would you have the audacity to bring this guy over here? And so that became a horrible situation. So getting back to her, I filed for divorce, hired Harry Claiborne, the greatest attorney in town, and that was it. And finally, after I bought my house in Rosarito, Mexico, I found out that she had cancer, Rhonda. And she was at a cancer clinic in Rosarito, Mexico, unknown to me, while I was going to my house over there. And then eventually she got out and she was dying of cancer. Now she wanted to hang out with me at her dying days. And so when I would get jobs in San Diego or New York or anything, she said, I'll come over and watch the kids for you. I mean, when you had it good, you couldn't behave yourself. You had to be a putano la notte. And now you're dying. Now you said I was the best man you ever had in your life. Why couldn't you do that when you were married? So that's the episode with her. And I finally got divorced. She fought me, but to no avail, because you don't win cases against Harry Claiborne. You lose.
So you were married for 9 months, you said?
Yeah, that was it.
What year was that?
Oh, it's hard to recollect. It was during the draft ages, which had to be somewhere in the early 60s, I guess. I don't know. I can't remember. had to be somewhere in that ballpark.
Wow.
Yeah, it had to be somewhere in the early '60s. Yeah.
Yeah. So wow. So we'll go into we'll explore more about your cousin Jimmy Danks in the
Oh
future.
God.
And as you said, Fats Alio, there's some stories in the book of Fats and Jimmy coming out to Vegas wanting their comps and putting you in more uncomfortable situations. But first, there's one more thing I wanted to touch on, with your love life, and we'll continue to explore these stories because that's a huge part of your book. And again, if anybody hasn't checked it out, you can get that book right now online at Jimmy's website. It's a great read, but he goes into a lot of the relationships that he's had over the years, and we're still going to we're building up to some of the bigger names and everything later on. But one of them was there's one of the stories in there that I laughed out loud when I read it, was yourself with a famous stripper named Candy Barr.
Oh God. You know, Johnny, when I was young, I have no idea, but I had the pick of the crop. I mean, at the El Rancho Vegas is where I met Candy Barr, and she was built as good as any woman I ever seen in my life. She comes on the show, Candy Barr, and automatically her and I hit it off. So we started to have our affairs with no place to go. I didn't realize that I couldn't go. See, in the El Rancho, they had bungalows in the back. It was not a real high-rise hotel. I think I mentioned to you that Wilt Chamberlain was in there once. He couldn't even stand up, 7'2", and that was a mob hangout. Everybody in the mother mob was there. Of course, Jimmy the Weasel was there, which he eventually burned it down. Not officially, but that was the rumor. And so anyway, we had no place to go. So we had this attraction. So I wound up going in the ladies' room with her. It was about a little closet style ladies' room, nothing big in it. And we carry on. Didn't hold anything back. Anyway, this friend of mine that got me on the band at the El Rancho, Tutti Faila from New Orleans, he promised my dad that he would watch over me because I was only 19, 20 years old. My dad and he were good friends, and Tootie was about 10 years older than me. I roomed with him for a while. And Tootie said, I'll keep an eye on him. So he came to me one night and he says, "Hey, what are you doing coming here at 6 o'clock at night?" I said, "Well, I'm going to warm up, play my set." He said, "Bullshit. Show doesn't start till 8 o'clock. What are you coming there at 6 o'clock at night for?" I said, "Well," he said, "what are you doing?" And I said, "No, nothing." So anyway, Candy Barr shows up every night around 6. And we go into the ladies' room there and carry on. And he starts to investigate. He gets the security guard to open up the ladies' room. Boom. And he catches her and I going at it. So he grabs me by the hair. He says, "You little MF, do you realize that Mickey Cohen, the mobster, is in the back bungalows here? If he catches you with her, you're not going to be alive anymore. He'll kill you."
Now I want to pause for a second. Mickey Cohen, for anybody who doesn't know, very famous gangster out of Los Angeles, right?
Right.
Not Italian, but he was, very, very powerful gangster out of Los Angeles. A lot of movies made, you always hear Mickey, anytime they talk about the gangsters in LA, Mickey Cohen's name comes up a lot. He's a big name, dangerous guy. You mentioned Jimmy the Weasel, in Jimmy the Weasel's book, The Last Mafioso, he talks about how Jimmy was supposed to kill Mickey Cohen a few times, and he survived those attempts, and they just kind of went wrong. But Mickey Cohen, yeah, very dangerous guy. And so you're saying that Mickey Cohen, Candy Barr, was Mickey Cohen's girl. is essentially what you're saying.
Exactly. And of course, here comes me, a little Italian punk playing saxophone, and she goes for me. And again, I have no explanation why I was so fortunate to be attracted to all of these ladies. I mean, I guess who knows? But I had that thing a lot of people don't have. I had that attraction. My
Charisma.
personality, that personality that I have, that being around Sandy and Briar Hill and all that, I had that Italian macho thing, which is kind of is attractive to a lot of ladies. They don't like wimps. And
Yeah, you hear that, Jimmy? Wherever you are, I don't know. I
don't, they'll get divorced. Don't do that. So that was the deal with Candy. Excuse me, Candy Barr.
So did you then break it off with Candy Barr right
Oh
away?
yeah, oh yeah. Tootie said, "I'll break your head." I was fortunate to have people that would guide me because when you're 19 and 20 years old, nothing. You're fearless. You don't realize the ramifications that can come. I
Yeah.
didn't, like I told you before, I didn't realize how powerful Sandy Naples was, how powerful Billy or Joey was. I didn't realize that. But
Yeah.
yet, when I asked for favors, I got it, and I never realized. I took it for granted. So when you go in there and you talk about Mickey Cohen, I didn't think he was that powerful. Let alone did I realize that later on, Mo Dalitz, Carl Cohen, Jack and Trotter, Yale Cohen. These people are powerful because the Jewish don't mean they're not in the mafia.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And there's a huge history there with, the Jewish syndicate, the Italian mafia, the connections that they had together all the way back with, Meyer Lansky, Lucky Luciano, Mo
right
Dalitz, like you were saying.
there you go,
These guys
Myra
all work
Lance.
together.
Yeah, you don't realize that. And last night talking with Johnny Russo, we discussed a lot of that and carrying mob money back to Cleveland from Youngstown. I know a lot of no names, a lot of people that were doing that here. Even Johnny said last night he was doing that at one time, taking money back. But
Yeah.
uh, it, it it was frightening. So thank God I had some guidance. Somebody was guiding me because I was too stupid to realize how dangerous that was. You know,
Yeah.
so I
Well,
broke that
you make
off.
for just another small chapter in the long book that is the Vegas player and the history that you've lived. And we're going to get into future episodes. Just to tease a little bit, you had a relationship with a woman who was portrayed in one of the most famous mob movies of all time. Um, we'll tease ahead a little bit and just say that she was played by Sharon Stone in the movie Casino. So we'll get to that in the future episodes, as well as a very big name actress that you had a long relationship with, and
We're talking
again,
about that last night.
there you go. We'll talk about that in the future again, and future episodes. So check it out, guys. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You want to catch episodes every Thursday, the Vegas Player Podcast. Next week, our co-host Jimmy Naples, he'll be back. He'll be back here in the studio in Youngstown. But yeah, once again, just great stories, and thanks again for joining me, Jimmy. We'll talk about a lot of this stuff in the future. We'll keep going. If you want to send us an email, if you're watching the show at home and you want to send us an email, you want to send us a question or a topic to talk about, send it to Steel Valley Syndicate at gmail.com. That's up on your screen. You'll be able to see that right here. Steel Valley Syndicate, gmail.com. Send us some suggestions. You want to hear, us Jimmy talk about something in particular. We've already touched on so much. Last week's episode with Elvis was fantastic. So, please send us your comments, send us your suggestions, any questions you have. You mentioned Gianni Russo. It would be great to have Gianni on the show. Maybe we'll start bringing some guests on the show.
Yeah,
And
he left this morning, went back to New York. I mentioned it to him last night, and he said, "Call me if I got time. I'll do it."
sounds good.
Also, uh, let's talk about next time we come out. Betty Grable, of all people,
Betty
Candy
Grable,
told me
yeah.
Betty Grable, she was past her prime, was a big drinker, and that was like a mercy thing on my part. She was crazy about. I mean, is that funny? Here was a pinup girl in the 40s for the army guys, and now she became like a mercy bump. Like anyway, and then talk about Betty
She
Grable.
wanted you, huh, Jimmy? She wanted the young stud, Jimmy Mulidore.
Yeah, and then Miles Davis's wife. Uh, so many ladies. Danny Thomas's daughter, who was crazy
We'll get
about
into it.
me.
We'll get into it all. Danny Thomas, you remind me next week. We'll get into that, especially, and go from there. So it'll be fun. Well, I appreciate the time, Jimmy. Again, this is maybe a condensed episode, but we're missing our co-host. So what can you do? So we appreciate it, and everybody watching at home, please subscribe to the channel. You want to get more episodes every week, right here on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/amazing podcast company. What do you got? Anything to sign us off today, Jimmy?
You got me up early, and I'd only do it for you. And after hanging out with Johnny, I hope I made some sense today because I only had a cup of coffee, and I hope you enjoyed my comments today. And you do a wonderful job. You're really good at what you do. And let's hope that this turns into be something big. I think it should be. Somebody out there watching should grab a hold of this because these stories are once in a lifetime. They never happen to anybody. And you're doing a good job bringing them out and doing your research. So maybe next week you'll have more research and pictures. Get more pictures if you can, and
we'll try.
Go from there.
Try. All right, Jimmy, thank you so much. And again, to our audience, thank you for tuning in to another episode. We'll see you next week. Ciao.
Take care, John.
That was an amazing podcast from an amazing podcast company. For more, subscribe to our channel at youtube.com/amazingpodcastcompany.